Again, thank you everyone for continuing your journey with us on the 14th annual CRC Library Workshop. We are thrilled to present for another year the Directors Panel. Our moderator again this year is Laura Blessing of NC State, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her to get our session kicked off.
Thank you, Mara. So today we're going to meet all of our panelists first. And for our panelists, I did put the order of introductions in our chat, so you know when to go. They will be telling us a little bit about themselves, including their name, the institution they work with, a title, and a fun fact. After that, we'll get to the questions that we pre-screened beforehand, ask those in order, and it's going to be a free-for-all. We'll just let people answer as they feel, and there might be some talking over one another. If so, I'll do my best to moderate that, make sure everything goes smoothly, and we'll leave a few minutes at the end to ask and answer questions. Now, anytime through this session, you can put in a question on the Q&A or use chat. Either one is fine. And if there's a natural pause, then I'll go ahead and ask our panelists the question then, and otherwise we'll just save it for the end. So without further ado, if we could start with our Meredith panelist introducing herself, please.
Hi, I'm Laura Davidson. I'm the Dean of Library Information Services at Meredith College, and they asked for a fun fact, and so I'll offer for a fun fact the fact that I do origami. I'll admit that during Zoom, I've been doing a lot of origami during meetings, and this is the product.
Laura just took the best fun fact of the group, probably. Anyway, I'm Greg Roschke. I'm the Senior Vice Provost and Director of Libraries at NC State. My fun fact is that I'm a deadhead despite the shortness of my hair. It was a lot longer about 30 years ago or so when I was more into it, but I remain an avid fan of their music. And I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
So hi, my name is Tawana Nevels. I am the Director of Library Services at St. Augustine's University. First, I want to say to Laura, I'm a crafter, so I like that. That's cool. But my fun fact is that in January, when we were going back in person, the day before we were supposed to go back, I broke my ankle walking my dog at the lake. So I have been working from home ever since. And so, whereas a lot of times people say that they're working from home because of COVID, I've been at home because I was nursing a broken ankle.
Not fun.
Well, my grandbaby's been with me, so it's been a lot fun because of that.
Hello, everyone. I'm Coronado Davis. I'm the Dean of Library Services at Wake Tech Community College. And my fun fact is, as a result of the pandemic, I've tried my hand at gardening, which I'm traditionally not a green thumb, but with the help of my neighbor, it hasn't died yet. So we'll see how it goes.
Hi, my name is Nate Helmers. I'm the director of the library at William Peace University. My fun fact is that this is the first meeting in over a year that I haven't been in my 5-year-old twins room, surrounded by literally over 200 stuffed animals all staring at me while in meetings. It's kind of nice.
I cannot believe they are 5 now. Oh my goodness.
5.5, yeah.
5.5. Oh my God.
And I was at some of those meetings where you had a pink background. This is the first time I've seen you with a white background.
Big pink curtains, as in a big lazy boy.
That's great. Yeah. All right, thanks everybody. So we'll just dive right into our questions. And the first one is, what skills do you believe a rising library professional needs to progress their career?
I'll jump in. I'm not a big believer in skills when I hire people. I don't care about whether they can catalog in a particular format or know particular reference resources or anything like that. The things I care about are the ability to learn quickly, the ability to change easily, and welcome change, and general creativity. I think anybody can be taught anything that we do in libraries if they have those characteristics.
I'll have to say that I agree with Nate. I definitely believe that if they have the ability to learn and adapt quickly and pivot when we need to, that is most important to me. I do, however, kind of try to gauge or have a sense of their customer service skills, because we're very big on meeting the needs of those who come to the library. But I am one of those who I don't necessarily, unless the job calls for it, I am not really big on you have to have that MLS. I believe that everybody deserves an opportunity. And if you can pivot, if you can adapt, if you can learn quickly, anybody can come in the library and really help us to further our mission at the university.
I guess I sort of looked at the skills more closely, and I'm going to say that, you know, one of the sort of screens that you have to get through to come to work for me is having some facility with technology. It's true you can be taught technology, but it's a lot easier on me if you come with good tech skills. And in a similar way, I would say that I'm at this point for my librarians, I'm looking for teachers, regardless of which you're in, because you're going to be teaching. And so that's critical. And then, you know, I want a habit of mind that is collaborative and respectful of the people around them.
I would just follow up with what Tawana said about MLS degrees. I'm not a big believer that that's the be all end all to qualifications. I will say that the smaller the library gets, the more with accreditation and some other factors, you may simply have to do that. But I've certainly worked with people who had degrees in completely different fields who were much better at librarianship than I am. But sometimes you have to.
Yeah, I agree with that. If I can, I try to have a healthy balance. What I have noticed in the past is those that I've hired that did not have the MLS, after their experience, they went on to get it. So it was those experiences and skills that they learned that wanted them to really think more deeply about where their career was going. And so I'm happy to have been a part of that. And I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but sometimes you have those who have the MLS who feel like if you don't have the MLS, you just don't have the skills, period. And I truly believe that don't have it, but you are really taking the time to learn and grow within the field. You may go on to get that degree, but it doesn't discredit you if you don't. If you're a hard worker, if you are doing the work that is asked of you and you're doing it at a rate that is satisfactory, then, you know, I'm not going to overlook you because of that.
And for me over at Wake Tech, some of the things that I look for are some of the skills when I was looking at this question is some of the things that the skills of the staff that we have already that have been helpful that they may not have been as forthcoming with. And I think COVID has kind of pulled out some of those skills, but also I like to look at this as a values set as well. So what that means is, you know, strong work ethic, cultural competency, integrity, strong customer support, appreciation for our customer. A lot of what we do is serving faculty, staff, and our community. So having a servant mindset of how can I serve you? How can I make this experience for you, this interaction for you better? Really being able to think critically about solving problems, being able to listen, actively listen to patrons and get to the root of what they really need as opposed to what they're saying. I think we've all been in situations where patrons are asking for one thing, but they need something totally different. And being able to think through that and decipher what they really need and ask the right questions. I think leadership, teamwork, being a great team player, being willing to jump in and take on things that may be out of your comfort zone, but you have that willingness to learn about it or to at least try it. So along those lines, curiosity. So not being afraid to fail, not being afraid to try new ideas or try new initiatives and just seeing what happens. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but just learn from that. Again, being flexible, being able to teach. And I think one thing that has really stood out for us is really being able to manipulate data, data visualization, data analysis. Those have been really key things that we've needed just for within our libraries.
Yeah, I would say, no disagreement with anything anybody said. I think you hire for traits and potential over existing, bullet skills every time, and you'll be better off. But yeah, undeniably, our profession is getting more technical, and so if you really want an answer that articulates skills, we would be talking about things that are either data intensive or technology intensive, and it doesn't have to be like that necessarily like programming. It could be things like maker spaces, it could be things like data science, it could be things like immersive technologies. There's lots of possibilities and more blending, right, of some of the traits that we talked about with some capacity of technical skills. I think all those things would be valuable and can help distinguish people in their careers and in the marketplace.
Great, thanks. Our next question is, what's the most important risk you have taken and why was it important?
Well, I'll jump in on that one. For me, one of the most important risks that I took was saying yes. So that means saying yes to opportunities, saying yes to things that fall outside of my comfort level, saying yes to overcome falling into the trap of imposter syndrome. By saying yes to a lot of opportunities that I may not have had a lot of experience with or had zero experience or wasn't very familiar with, that created opportunity and space for me where I was able to gain some leadership opportunities, to build some relationships, some meaningful relationships, to grow my network. I was able to grow professionally, and even to have the opportunity for some mentorship as a mentee and as a mentor for librarians coming behind me. And along with that goes committee work and a lot of other things, but just taking the chance and saying yes, even if it's something I'm not as familiar with, or if I have zero experience with at all, but willing to learn about it.
I'd follow on with that and say being willing to look around to the sides of the career path that you've set out for yourself. I'm trained as a rare books librarian. That's what my degree is in. I've never actually done that as part of my career because I became a public library reference librarian and then a network administrator and then a community college librarian and so on. At each stage, I saw myself continuing on doing whatever it was, and then for either something popped open that was interesting and decide to say, hey, maybe I can go do that, or because of necessity, moving to a different state, that kind of thing. I had to try something else just to get a job. Those have been the most rewarding experiences of my career. And I'm really glad to not be a rare books librarian right now. That some of the other things that have come up have been much more fulfilling, I think.
Yeah, I would say mine in a professional sense are all either institutional change, moving institutions for new jobs, or taking new jobs, and having a growth mindset, an open mindset about that, and saying yes when there's the potential for that to be something exciting and interesting. I think those are all things that I've highlighted, and having several different jobs helps prepare you. Then, right, you can do lots of different things. And you can try out different things. And then if you're interested in moving up in an organization, having that wealth of experience to draw on certainly helps.
I focused on a particular risk that got me into academic libraries, out of public libraries, which was what I wanted to do when I came out of library school, but a chance to move to Georgia for other reasons had me looking in the Atlanta area for work. And I wound up with 2 job offers, one from what was then Solinet and is now Lyrasis, which was a known quantity, something I knew pretty well what they were doing, and it sounded interesting. But then I also had this offer from the Gwinnett University Systems Center, which was a distance learning site for UGA and Georgia State and what was then DeKalb Junior College. I'm really dating myself with all of this. Anyway, they were opening a new library, and it was a sort of odd job in that, you weren't going to be on a college campus, but sort of you were, and you weren't going to have much of a collection, but sort of you were. And I went that direction instead of the known quantity with Lyrasis. And it really set me on the path that got me to Meredith. It got me involved with the heads of the libraries of those 3 institutions, which got me involved with their statewide cooperative project, Galileo. Landed me a job at one of the other university system institutions when I was ready to leave Atlanta. So it was a really good move, but the choice of which job to take, the known quantity, Solinet, or this odd thing that was just opening up, was a risky call.
We can move on to the next question, which is, what are a couple of changes that you made due to the pandemic that you plan to keep?
Well, I'll say that I think every change that I made with the onset of COVID, I'll probably be keeping them all. They were all more digital resources to be able to offer students virtual sessions for library instruction, or just pre-recorded programming that they found useful, short videos that we created that would help them to navigate different materials and things. I don't really see myself letting those things go because students love them, especially our distance learners. They're probably things that we should have had, before COVID, or had them at a minimal, but it's a lot more prevalent now. I almost feel like, what were we doing before COVID? Because these things have just kind of skyrocketed, and I'm interested in seeing what students will do or use when we go back full on in person in the fall. But I do know that every virtual service that we came up with because of COVID I will keep and we will continue to update because they are being heavily used and it has truly transformed the way we think and some of the things that we offer. And we're continuing to like investigate that and see if there's anything that we're missing, if anything's fell between the cracks, because let's face it, COVID showed us where our cracks were in service. And that's not to say that we were doing a bad job. It just showed us ways that we can enhance our offerings and givings and be able to reach a broader audience, or even that student that just is studying at a time where the library is not open. They're still getting these great materials and these great virtual services that we have made because of COVID. So I don't believe that I will be getting rid of any service that we have come up with.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We, now offer online instruction sessions and online reference and all that, and we'll keep all of that. I think one of the really nice things that's come out of this is one of the things the library does is we provide support for faculty in Moodle. And I was getting the same questions over and over and over again. And what COVID kind of forced me to do was sit down and actually just make some little training videos. And suddenly several hundred questions worth of stuff just kind of disappeared because I spent a couple of afternoons making videos. And I think looking at our profession that way, looking at the services we offer, and just being forced to look at it from a completely different angle can really be beneficial. I was listening to the Chronicles little workshop yesterday on the future of small academic libraries, and one of the guys was saying, hey, we just got rid of our reference desk. What was the point? We don't need it anymore. And that kind of thinking would have been heresy, 2 years ago. And I think we can look around the library and say, we spend an awful lot of time doing some of these things, and maybe we don't need to do them, or maybe we can do them differently and far more efficiently. So I think there's the practical stuff that we're going to keep, but then there's also sort of a mindset change that I hope we keep.
Yeah, I think the interesting question. I think libraries in general were, compared to our parent institutions, we're very well prepared for the pandemic. And most of our content had been moving heavily online already. We all had some form of chat, email service, those kinds of things already. Remote friendly kind of incorporation. So I think there's certain things like we're going to open our buildings to the public, right? Those things are going to change shortly again, like they were before. But by and large, we're going to keep things that we experimented with. The question is how much, right? So like our instruction, we're going to have a full residential campus experience again in the fall. So we're going to be doing more instruction in person. But like, how do you blend what you took from the pandemic and how do you sustainably incorporate that into some of the things you were doing pre-pandemic, and how do you find the right balance? I think will be the most interesting question. We do more one-on-one Zoom-based like digital media consultations, and we got a lot done that way. We'll continue to do them, but we're also going to have people walking into our digital media center. So how do you kind of balance those things out and incorporate them in a way that's sustainable and helps us extend our reach? I think that's the really, like you all have referenced, it's the really interesting question, is how we can reach more people and help more of our community with some of the things that we adopted.
Yeah,
I
and
think for us, we're really going to stay focused on those who do come in person, but the way we'll advertise, especially for the virtual library instruction, will be that we offer certain times for that, and looking closely at what times will fit our distant learners, what times would fit students who are on campus who still prefer something virtual, and being able to implement it that way. I think we'll be looking at all of our virtual services that way. And as you said, find that healthy balance so that we don't create a burnout situation or what have you. But I think that's basically what we'll be doing is just trying to find a way that there's a standard, at least for the virtual, that we won't have to kind of change it that often. It'll be standard times that students can always know are set in place,
Yeah,
at least for that component.
yeah, and for us as well, I agree with everything that everyone has said. We're probably going to look more at continuing with some type of hybrid model for in-person and virtual. We serve a large amount of distance ed students, which pre-pandemic, unfortunately, I feel we could have been doing a better job from the library side of engaging those students. So as a result of the pandemic, it kind of forced us to accelerate some of the initiatives that we were wanting to get in place in some of our virtual offerings and virtual services. So for us, it's probably going to be more keeping a hybrid model to really make sure that we're able to continue serving our distance students and even those who may not be as comfortable coming back into the buildings yet, to make sure that everyone is still having access to what we have to offer. Even for our staff, we'll probably do a hybrid model of meetings where every meeting may not be in person. Since we have 6 campuses, so they're driving all across Wake County. So to save time and make things more efficient, we can have virtual meetings where everyone isn't having to scramble, with our rush hour traffic trying to get across to one particular library. One thing that we really ramped up as well was our digital marketing and outreach. So that's one thing that we'll probably really continue on with. It has served us very well with being able to get the word out about all the changes and everything that was happening during the pandemic, all the changes that was happening with the school, with the library. We were able to get that information out quickly. So we definitely want to continue doing that. And even some of our services that were high touch, we were able to transition those to online, or having some of the forms and things online so we can minimize having to have that in-person contact, which again, the students have responded well to those things. So we'll probably continue on with some of those things as well. One thing too, we had a really high demand for our laptops. So pre-pandemic, the laptops did not check out for an extremely long time, but now we've extended our laptop checkouts to semester long checkouts. And we're going to, once we get back into the fall, we're going to experiment with having multiple levels of checkout times, whether that's 3 hours, 3 days, 24 hours, 7 days, or even the extended semester long, depending on the need of the student.
So I almost can say what they said, that my colleagues have offered brilliant observations, most of which are true for us as well. One thing I will say that's a thing I'm going to continue on a more personal level is the use of Zoom, particularly to build community outside of the library, across the state, or with other librarians who are doing the things I'm doing. And I'm bringing this up in part because I think this is something all of us can do. If you would like to have a peer group, it's as easy as sending out an email with a Zoom link in it. The library directors and the private college libraries have had a chance to gather on Friday mornings since, what was that, last April, maybe. I've been sending those invitations out. And, some come, some don't, but it's lovely to have that chance to just talk. And that was just sort of on a whim that started happening. And yeah, I'm going to say Zoom's a valuable tool and something we almost all of us have access to, that or some other platform at this point, and could do that same thing.
Yeah, along with Laura, we've been really using Teams a lot. And with us being spread out across our libraries, the communications not only between the administrative librarians, but also the support staff has gotten exponentially better. because they're hopping into chats, they're creating groups for themselves, different staff members that work on similar projects. They've been able to create their own groups, and it's been, the communication has been 10 times better than what it was prior to the pandemic. So we definitely want to keep up that aspect of it, the communication, and really not getting bogged down into the silos of whatever library you work at, you know.
Great. So our next question is, COVID was an unexpected challenge. It sure was. What other challenges do you believe may be coming up?
I think just for us, it will be channeling the mindset of students coming back who have been doing virtual classes for the past year, and just being able to re-engage and rejuvenate them coming to the library and visiting us, and helping them to be prepared for the ins and outs of coming in to do research and getting prepared for classes, and just sort of helping the rest of the university to truly just get them back in the mind that they're in person, that they have to get up and they have to be prepared for class, and they have to come into the library, and let us help them get ready. But I think it's just going to be a matter of just meeting the students where they are, especially after this past year, and being a support to them as much as possible.
Yeah, and along with Tawana, so conversations that we've been having amongst us at the library has been really reacclimating our students and making them feel welcome again. Knowing that, you know, with the pandemic and even some things historically, that marginalized populations have not felt welcome at libraries and other institutions. So the pandemic may have been a trigger. So really going over and extending ourselves and making sure that we're reintroducing ourselves and reacclimating our users, that we are here for you. You're welcome, regardless of, you know, what that background looks like, what your pandemic situation was. We are here for you, and really making everyone feel overly welcome so they get reacclimated to being in our spaces again.
I think a challenge that we've all faced is the idea that our staff have lives outside of work, and especially those with kids. The past year has been awful. If you've dealt with kids in the online schooling that they've had to do. And I think going forward, we're going to have to take that kind of thing more into account, that someone who has one or two or however many kids, they may be doing stuff at home, and therefore the parents may expect to work at home, and may not expect to be spending 40 hours in the office every week, or, you know, a 9-to-5 type schedule. They may have some expectations for a lot more flexibility than they might have had in the past.
I think this is especially true when, you know, there'll be classes where, and for a while, they still may do, you know, some in person for a while, and then some virtual for a while, until they're comfortable with whatever normalcy. But that is, it is something that we have talked about in the library, because I do have staff members who do have elementary age children. And right now, you know, sometimes they are in person and sometimes they are virtual. So.
And also what COVID kind of brought to light even more was the digital divide, with digital equity and equitable access to internet and technology, things like that, digital literacy training. So I definitely think that is going to be a continuing issue that needs to be addressed, especially in some of our rural communities, some of our poor communities, and things like that. So definitely trying to somehow figure out a way to bridge that digital divide for our users.
I think what you're all talking about relates to a shorter term challenge we're going to face is engagement of our students with libraries and other co-curricular services. Like, despite everything we did to move things online and to connect with them and engage them, like you look at any survey, any institutional or pan-institutional survey, they're less engaged, they're less aware of the kind of services that we have, that like writing, tutoring, other curricular support efforts have to offer. And so we're going to have a whole class of students who are starting new, but we're going to have a whole class who are starting new in person in a lot of ways with us. And so we're going to have two classes to connect with, engage with, and orient. I think that's going to be a big challenge for libraries everywhere, and one that we're going to have to help really work hard to solve, because as we all know, if you're more engaged with the library and these other services, you do better, right? And so we're going to be a big part of retaining and helping these kids sustain their progress through. So that's a big one in the shorter term. In the longer term, I just think it's the continued challenge of orienting libraries around people and services. And that's a process that's been going on for 25 years, but I think is even accelerating, moving from a content focus to a people-centered, skill-based, collaborative kind of focus. And I think the pandemic is actually going to accelerate some of those changes, or finish them, so to speak.
I've got two things I want to talk about. One is, for me, one of the near-term things is actually sort of embedding and grading the attention we've been giving to diversity, equity, and inclusion in the last year, so that that initiative doesn't fade away. I want it to be an evergreen piece of what is happening in our library. And I think if there's going to be a temptation to just sort of say, we did that, we can check it off. And I don't think that's really a choice for us. The other is more of a big picture challenge that most of our institutions, if not all of them, are facing, which is the thing that that my provost calls the enrollment cliff. The number of high school graduates at North Carolina is going to plummet over the next few years, and that's going to hit all of us in some form or another. And for those of us who are private colleges, the addition of the possibility of free community college may increase that risk. And I think, that's a challenge our whole institution is going to have to deal with, but it's going to hit us. And so it's a thing on my horizon.
And I'm looking at the time. I'd like to go on to our next question, and please feel free to answer fully the next couple questions, but just be aware of the time as we go through. So what do you see for the future of libraries in the next 5 years and in the next 10 years?
I think for small libraries, one of the issues we're kind of grappling with is the value of the space, the physical space that we sort of own on campus. When I started here, the library was the library. It was ours. Now we have tutoring, immersive learning. They're about to move career services in. We've got first year experience, and we have advisors. All in the space, and there's still the same amount of, there's more study space actually right now, but it's not our space. And I think on our campus and a lot of small campuses like ours, I think there's going to be a transition of librarians to be more like advisors, to be people maybe who are in an office that you make an appointment with, rather than I'm going to go to the library and all the staff that are there are going to be able to help me do my research and so forth. I think that's going to have to change, and that perception is going to have to change, both for the patrons and for the staff.
I think Nate is right. Just recently, we were asked to partner with the financial aid department, and they want us to work in tandem with them to host pop-up financial literacy workshops. And so I do believe that when you do begin to collaborate with other departments on campus, some of the things that you do kind of mimic advising. And so I totally agree with what he said.
And I also think that the library is moving more toward a library as an experience. What do I mean by that is, really tearing down the walls, that barrier of walls with the library where we're not so much gatekeepers of information, but we're facilitators of experiences with our users within the library or using our services and our resources. Creating how are people feeling when they come into our library? What senses are being engaged when they come into the library, when they interact with us? What is really creating a memorable experience that they want to come back, or that they want to tell someone else about how they experienced the library? So I think as we move forward, and even as we've made these changes with COVID, I think really viewing the library as an experience is going to be something toward the future of libraries.
Laura, did you want to say something? Or?
Actually, I don't have a whole lot new. They hit the things I had thought of.
Okay, great. I thought we could start in on questions. There has been one question submitted in the Q&A so far, and it's, should libraries try to focus on in-person learning and programming opportunities this fall? Some of you touched on that during your talks already. Anybody want to add to that?
We're gonna bring back an in-person working with English comp classes and first-year experience classes in an effort to reach all the first-year students. I think the benefit of doing that in person is just building a relationship more than actually teaching them how to use a database or anything like that. Just an awareness that we exist, and they can put a name with a face of someone who can help them. And I think that kind of stuff still works much better in person than online.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was in a discussion of some academic library directors, and some were like wondering, did the pandemic teach us that we don't need in-person libraries? And I actually think it's the opposite, which I think a number of folks agree with as well. Is it like I think this has taught us the value of the physical presence, the residential educational experience, the role the library can play in that, and not just the sort of current roles, but where we could potentially be. I think it was Coronado mentioned the experiential kind of elements of the library, and I think that's absolutely right. We can be centerpieces for experiential learning on our campuses, for engaged learning, for things that span boundaries across departments and colleges, and I think that's a huge opportunity for us. So that's more than this question asked, but I would say yes, in person and blended as always. Like we're pretty facile in moving between online and physical environments as organizations, as libraries, and I think that'll continue. But yeah, we're going to heavily emphasize that for all the reasons that everyone's mentioned, including the engagement that Nate just talked about.
So,
go ahead, Laura.
I would say behind that, that's what I want to happen this fall. I sit on the campus's pandemic planning committee, and a lot depends. There are a lot of decisions that we need to still make this summer as a campus, but there's the Delta variant floating around out there that is projected to peak in early fall. We may not have a choice about having people in person, and I think we just need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that I think it really depends on your campus and what the needs are of your students and your user community, and what works for your library. Of course, there are opportunities for both virtual and in person if you can accommodate that and sustain it. But I think it really comes down to your campus, what works best for your library, your campus.
And as Mara popped up here because it's time, you letting us know. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. This was a great discussion. I appreciate you spending your time with us, and I'll pop back over to Mara, see if she has any announcements for us.
Yes, thank you, panelists. This was fantastic and fantastic conversation. Thank you for keeping it rolling. And we really appreciate all of your insight. And I know the attendees do as well. As we move into our next session, up next is Visions of Transformation for a New Model Library, Futures Thinking in the Library. And then our last session of the day will be Libraries Unmuted. So definitely don't miss that networking opportunity. It'll be a lot of fun with prizes at the end. So we'll see everyone at your next session. Thank you.
Thank you.